So I'd really like for this to be an interactive presentation. I'll first go through some activities that I will ask you to think and write through, and then would love to have an informal conversation and take questions at the end. And during the workshop portion, I'll ask for some engagement so that I can read the room and not feel quite so awkward. And first and foremost, I will ask you to try to remove distractions around you. Ignore your phone if you can, and hold off on sending that email that you may be working on right now. And let's all take a deep breath together and try to stay focused and open-minded. So deep breath in, let it out. My name is Elizabeth Prenger, and I'm the founder and chief content officer for Prose Creative. I've spent the past 10 years working in the nonprofit space, and I led fundraising efforts and strategic communications for some wonderful nonprofits in Northwest Arkansas and around the country. And before that, I was in politics. Don't judge me for that. Throughout the years, I've spent a lot of time talking with people, listening to people, and trying to find messages that resonate, whether it's to encourage them to donate money, to volunteer, to vote, which everyone should vote. I needed them to take some sort of action. So as Kelly mentioned, in January of 2020, I made the decision to start my own business, which, you know, is the best year ever to start your own business. I wanted to pursue my passion for writing. So I set out to help companies, brands, and individuals connect with people and consumers by creating authentic relationships through their content and messaging. And Prose Creative was born. And I wanted to share my business journey with you all because I wanted you to know that I'm here in the trenches with you. So I realized as I was building my business that I needed to spend some time figuring out what my brand was, which is kind of important. So that led me to some soul searching and having really honest conversations with myself and other people who know me really well. I asked for their honest feedback on what makes my business stand out and how I'm different from all the other talented people in my field. And I wanted this information to help me build out my marketing plan for my business and my services. And for me, that was intimidating. Even though I'm an outgoing person, it was challenging for me to approach myself and others with these really deep questions. Oh, and I wanted to note, definitely find a mentor. My mentors have helped me out on this journey, really providing some critical feedback that I needed to hear and things that I just wasn't thinking of initially. So I really recommend finding a strong mentor or two or three. I feel like I have 10, 15 great mentors that I can really lean on, which I'm grateful for. And before we jump into our activities, I wanted to share this quote because I feel like it really explains the foundation of how I see brands. Trust is everything. Your brand should feel like something consumers can have a relationship with. They want to trust you, they want to know you're a real person, and they want to see your authentic side. Especially in these days of COVID, that connection is really important. And they want to trust you that you are going to deliver something that can help them or improve their lives in some way. Now, I'm not sure who this little person is, but I love this photo. I love the message about celebrating your brand every day. And today we'll determine what you're most proud of about your brand and then identify the ways we can let the rest of the world know it. You'll be able to create relationships with existing customers, potential clients, business investors, whomever your target audience is, and you'll do this through your brand messaging. So if you're ready to embark on this journey with me, drop a 1 in the chat. It's my first call to action, a little bit of engagement there. Drop a 1 in the chat. I promise to be authentic and transparent, and hopefully you will walk away with some great steps for building up and sharing your brand. So your brand should feel powerful and authentic to your business's mission and its purpose. And you'll want to shout it from the rooftops. Thank you for all the ones, they're coming in. As business people, we're probably all a little too overly analytical sometimes and not always as confident as we appear. How many times do you think, I just need to get out of my own head? If you say that to yourself, go ahead, drop a number in the box. I just need to get out of my own head. So while this is true, today I'd like to take the opposite approach and spend some time in our psyche to see what we can dig out to serve our branding needs. And to get us in the right mindset, I'd like to start with some positive affirmations. What makes your brand great? What are you most proud of? And I'll start by giving you some examples for my business. Prose Creative provides people with great writing. I know how to engage with people through the written word. I can take a complex idea or process or product and communicate that service or product to consumers in a way they can understand and they can relate to. So what I can do through my writing is valuable to my clients. Prose is dependable. My clients know that I will get high quality work done in the time frame that they need, and hopefully ahead of schedule. I'm really good at staying in touch with clients, checking in and making sure deadlines are met and offering additional services as they need them. And they know that we will have an enjoyable working relationship. I'm not afraid to take risks with my writing and messaging. While a lot of businesses are uncomfortable with change or being vulnerable, I can help them shift into a mindset that change is good and evolution is a smart tactic for their messaging strategies. So I'm giving these compliments to my brand. I'm a great writer, a dependable partner, an innovative thinker, and I'm creating messaging around these concepts for my brand on my various channels. So whatever platform I'm on, this is the brand impression that I want to give to the public. I'm posting inspirational quotes. I'm sending positive vibes out to people. I'm posting very emotionally rich content because that's how I want people to see my business, and that's authentic to my work. So I'd like to take a moment to give you some time to think about the compliments you'd give your brand or your business. And if you're comfortable dropping these into the chat, I'd love to see what you're most proud of around your brand or your business. So drop them in the chat, start thinking about them. These are really, you may think that you're tooting your own horn and you don't really want to think that way, but think about it more from the mindset of things that you're able to offer up to the community to help them. So as you're thinking about these compliments, as they pop up, drop them in the chat. I would love to check into those. And we will jump into our first official activity. So I'm not sure if you've seen this concept before. My friend Melina Urso, whom I think a lot of you probably know her, she's fabulous. She sent me some information on a Japanese concept called Ikigai, and that means a reason for being. It's the balance between your spiritual and practical beliefs and what makes your life whole. And you can see, excuse me, you can see that the diagram has 4 cross sections. What you love, and this is what you're passionate about in life. What you're good at, something you have extensive knowledge and experience in. What the world needs, what people are looking for you to provide answers or solutions to. And what you can be paid for, what people will pay you to answer or solve. Thinking about these questions from the perspective of your business and your brand can help you determine your brand's reason for being. Star, I love that response, spreading the joy of ABBA's music. I'm a big fan. So I'd like for you to take out a notebook or start an email to yourself, but don't get distracted while you're in your email. Using the Ikigai prompts, answer these 4 important questions. What does your business love? What is your business good at? What does the world need from your business? What can you make a profit from? So start writing your thoughts down. And again, if you're open to it, share them with the group in the chat. Are you really good at analyzing numbers? Are you a strong marketing strategist? Do you make the world's most compelling social media graphics? Are you providing safe working environments for businesses? I'd like to give you 1 or 2 minutes to think about this, or maybe if that starts feeling too long, we'll cut that down a little bit. But I'd like for you to start writing these down. And as you're writing them down, really think about them and start believing them. And reminding yourself every day that this is what you're good at and this is your purpose. Once that starts getting more ingrained in your mind, it just gets easier and easier to talk about your brand and to market your brand to the masses. So I'm going to be silent for just a little bit and give the group some time to start jotting down ideas while it's fresh. Kelly, maybe you want to hum some background music. Just kidding.
Oh, no, you do not.
Okay, anytime anyone's ready to move on, drop a 2 in the box. Thanks, Samantha. All right. Okay, again, this is a safe space for sharing. And if you're open to sharing, type your Ikigai into the chat. And if you're not comfortable sharing that here, I encourage you to find someone that you trust and that you have a close relationship with to share this with them and just get their feedback. Maybe it's your mentor that we talked about earlier. Maybe it's your work wife or work husband. Maybe it's a business coach, or it could be someone that you find on the side of the road. They could probably provide some great insights as well. Thank you for sharing, Clint. All right. So it sounds like people are starting to really tap into their Ikigai. So we're going to spend some time thinking about your brand mission. You have your brand's Ikigai, or reason for being. Now you can apply that to developing a brand mission statement. In your notebook or on your email, let's take your Ikigai and develop a statement that your brand can represent and live by every day. My example is through writing and content. Prose Creative inspires people to take action. So I want to inspire people through my writing and content. It's not long or fancy, but it's authentic to my brand and it's authentic to me, and something that I'm proud to share to other people. So again, on your notebook or in your email, start crafting your brand mission. It can take up all 3 lines on a notebook, or it can simply be 3 words. But keeping it simple and keeping it very concise makes it easier for you to tell your story and easier for people to understand. In the nonprofit world, we say that we have about 7 seconds to share our mission. So keeping that messaging very narrow and short and easy to remember is something that I always recommend. And your mission and your purpose may change every few years as your business and your brand develop. And I think that's a really good thing. The ability to be flexible and open to change can lead to some great improvements to your business and to your messaging. Now, this is a really hard exercise, and some of the people that I work with spend weeks and lots of long meetings honing in on what their brand mission is. And for me, it took a couple of months for me to really understand what it is that I wanted to communicate out to the community. So don't worry if this isn't complete yet. If you do have something to share, I know some folks have started sharing their brand mission, and thank you so much. I've enjoyed reading these, and you really are making a difference in the community. So thank you for what you're doing. And if you need some inspiration, if you don't quite have your sentence figured out yet, take some inspiration from this group, this impactful group. And set some time aside later to, while this is fresh on your mind, to really think through this and develop some strong content that you can share out to the world. So again, my favorite photo of the day, when you get to a place where you're happy with your brand mission, think about a place that you look at multiple times throughout the day. Maybe it's a mirror in your bathroom. Maybe it's a poster in your office. Maybe it's a sticky note in your car. Decide the best spot to showcase your brand mission and stick it there. I even made a cool little design, a wallpaper design for my phone. And every time I picked up my phone, which is, all day throughout the day, there was this nice reminder of how wonderful my brand was and why I'm so proud of it. The more you see it and say it to yourself, the easier it's going to be to communicate that to people around you, whether it's digitally or one-on-one, on a press release, or in a group setting. So I'd like to pause here and celebrate your brand and celebrate the work that you're doing to create authentic messaging that will help your business grow. Drop a 5 in the chat for a high five, a collective high five, and celebrate the work that you're doing today and will continue doing down the road. Yay. So now you have your brand identity and your brand mission, but now what? How do you share it to the world? I have to admit, it's not an easy task. As a mom of 2 young boys, a partner to my husband, a busy entrepreneur, and I used to be a highly social being, getting back into that groove, I'm pulled in all sorts of different directions, and it's hard to be intentional about sharing your message. In your notebook or on your email, wherever you're taking these notes, start listing the channels that you're using now and maybe the channels that you're interested in learning more about and that you're comfortable using. I have my website. I tried to do newsletter blasts. I didn't stay very consistent with that. So hoping to include that down the road. And then Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, start listing all the channels that you use. There are so many channels and it can be totally overwhelming. And I'm not an expert in social media marketing, so I cannot offer any advice there other than find a resource that is really good at it and hire them if you have the budget, or simply ask for help. As a business that's learning, there are so many resources such as the Fayetteville Public Library that you can learn from. And it becomes easier and easier to use social media if you are confident with your messaging and you know what you want to say, which is why it's a good idea to really flesh out your brand voice and purpose. And when you get to a point to being able to delegate out your marketing and social media activities, either hiring a staff member or bringing on a consultant, whomever is managing your social channels will have a more successful experience representing your business because you have that tone and that messaging already developed for them to use. And since you can't use every channel, be strategic about which platforms you're using. This is important for resource allocation and maintaining your sanity. I started with finding out where my audience is and then building out from there. And I try not to see these channels as an overwhelming burden, even though they do feel that way a lot of times. But I try to see them as opportunities, especially right now in the days of COVID. Everything and everyone is online. And with your authentic messaging, you should feel confident showcasing your brand across as many platforms as you can take on. Again, your website, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, eBlast, Clint mentioned MySpace, earned media pieces, whatever channel of communication you're approaching. Once you start getting out there with your authentic messaging and content, consumers can really relate with that. And hopefully you'll notice new audience members and increased sales activities. And if you're not using LinkedIn, I think this group should just have a friendly reminder. LinkedIn is where a lot of your audience members are, so use that to your advantage. And then an extra tip, know your audience. You may have the best product or service in the whole entire world, but if you aren't communicating your message in a way that your readers can relate to, then you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your consumers. Knowing who you're talking to or identifying who you want to be talking to is invaluable to your brand and your messaging strategy. I like to try to shift my messaging away from what I offer and focus more on how it helps my audience members and the world around me, like in your Ikigai. So our next activity on your notebook or in your email, start a list of people you trust internally and externally who can give you feedback on your main messaging. These focus groups can really support validating your messaging and making sure that you are speaking in a way that is true to your brand and also that the general public can understand. Ask them for their feedback on your messaging. Ask them how it makes them feel. Find people who are your ideal customer or consumer and see if they understand what you're wanting to communicate. They can review marketing materials, your website, listen to your sales pitch, listen to your mission statement, whatever it is that is most important for you in this moment for your marketing or sales goals. This is also a great time to ask for client testimonials, which always come in handy. And for the nonprofit folks in the group, you may get a donation out of it. I don't know, just a suggestion. So building out this list of important and diverse stakeholders for your focus group can really provide some great feedback as you're working on these different activities for your business. I won't ask you to share these names. Those are yours to keep. And then the next activity, I thought it was really important to focus in on this because I think we get so busy in trying to figure out what we're trying to do. We forget to share it with people around us and bring other people in on the journey. The team around you can be your biggest microphone. And again, don't forget to bring your team along on your journey. This could be your staff. This could be friends of yours, family members, the person who answers your phones at the office. I recommend organizing a formal or informal meeting to go over your messaging phrases, overarching strategy pieces, so that every person that plays a role in your business feels like they are involved and they are equipped to talk about your brand in a big way and feel very confident and empowered to do so. So again, I wanted to show this, this quote because I do think it just really hits home in my mind about brands. I truly believe that authenticity is the key ingredient to building trust with your audience. And another little secret I wanted to share is the first person that you have to convince on how amazing your brand is yourself. And if you have a team around you, they have to believe in it fully also. So believing how much value your products or service can provide to your customers and your community can really impact your perception and how you're portraying that out to the community. So that was a lot to run through. And Kelly, you're right. I just went through that so quickly. Zoom tends to do that. But I wanted to say great job to the group. And other than these points to remember, I wanted to remind you of one last thing. Remember to give yourself grace. Messaging is tricky and time consuming, and it can change on a daily basis. We all make a mistake here or there when it comes to our messaging and what we're portraying out there on social media. Be flexible, be brave, and be kind to others and to yourself. This is a very hard thing to narrow in on. So I know that since you've joined this discussion, you are embarking on a really fun journey, and I'm very excited and proud of you. And if I can ever be a resource, please don't hesitate to reach out. Would love for you to follow me on social media and engage with me there. And would love to continue working with you and interacting with you on resources that you might need for branding, writing, and finding your authentic brand. So with that, I would love to open up the floor for a couple of questions and or dialogue. This is your brand, this is your identity, and I want you to be very confident in talking about it and asking questions here in this very safe space for sharing.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Awesome. I was just curious. My name is Danielle. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having this. If you could just dive a little deeper into, it may sound silly, but the difference between what the world needs from our business to what the business can make a profit from, just to kind of help understand that a little bit more.
Sure. I'm going to scroll back to that slide. So the difference between what the world needs and what you can be paid for, essentially. I mean, I think that is going to come from your mind. I think that it depends on what you are understanding as really the value added to your community through the services or the business that you're providing. In my mind, for my business and what I do, I feel like the world needs kindness and connection. So I have kind of taken that drive and passion from my business perspective and turned that into a service that people are coming to me for, that empathic writing, the creative writing, storytelling. That's what people are paying me for right now. And to me, it makes me feel really good knowing that what I'm making a living from supports what I see as a major need in the world right now. So I don't know if that answers your question. And if you have some thoughts that you wanted to share on your business to give an example, we can kind of talk through that as a group.
Yeah, that makes more sense because it's so I guess for me, what I see that the world needs more of is sustainable innovation in the farming industry. And that's what I'm working on. I'm developing a new type of hydroponic product. And so what I could make a profit from is launching that product. But that's not just what the world needs. There's more types of farmers in hydroponic that we absolutely need. I believe that we could use more innovation in that industry.
I love that. And one thing that I'm working on with a startup is, we have all these really big ideas that we want to get to eventually, but knowing the limited capacity that we're in right now, really focusing in on that product or service that we can offer in this moment, but also celebrating the bigger ideas down the road that we hope to get to. And that can lead to, some really great discussions online with folks that can lead to various partnerships with different organizations that may have a larger capacity than you do in this moment, or who are doing something similar, but it's very different. So that cross collaboration and relationship building could come in through having those conversations and utilizing social media to start those. I see that as a great opportunity.
I won't take up the floor much more than this last thing, but I was just, does it send a mixed message? I know that innovation is kind of a broad term, but and I could specify it more in innovation in the farming industry. Does it send a mixed message if I'm like showcasing or promoting a cool innovation that isn't necessarily ours, but it is happening out there, and I share that on like my social media? Is that confusing to viewers?
I think it depends on the wording that's used. I would definitely try to highlight that this is not something that we make or provide, but this is another business that is doing some cool work that we wanted to showcase. So no, I actually for me, I like that cross collaboration and cross promotion, but definitely making sure that it is clear that this is not your business or your brand, but it's simply a brand that you admire.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
Yes. What else? Anyone else? I love questions. I love the engagement. I hate just talking and talking and talking. So thank you for your questions. And if you want to drop it in the chat too, that would be great as well. And I love all the MySpace dialogue on here. That's awesome.
That's probably only funny to people of a certain age. There's like probably a generation on here who was born after MySpace.
Well, that's why I said mine was like a Pandoras box. Like
Right.
everybody was in there for a few years, and then everybody just kind of dropped it, and there it lies with everybody's secrets from the
Right.
2000s.
Is there anyone on the call that feels like they are in a really strong place with their branding and messaging, and any resources that Danielle says no, any resources that you have found on your journey that have been really helpful that maybe other members of the group would benefit from?
You know it's a good game when people hate different outlets. Like, oh, what do you hate?
So I have an example I wanted to just run by the group, but it's not directly related to what you just asked.
Okay.
But if it's okay, I'll put it in front of the group.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm a pastor, and the whole Ikigai thing around what you can be paid for is slightly different from business, and yet also not, because the reality is, like, to do what we do, we have to have an income stream at the church.
Yeah.
And so, like, an example right now of something that we're talking about at our church, we actually, I would say, have discovered something that's going to be probably a mission shift for us, which is we started this, we're going to be hosting a queer camp this summer for LGBTQ youth. And it's really taken off, like, in a big way. Like, it's clearly going to be part of our brand that's additional to Good Shepherd. And the question is, like, that we have internal to our leadership is, so I know people are going to want to donate money for the queer camp. We've already seen that. But how do you pitch it, like the basic support of the fact that, we need income coming to the church to fund our regular staff, like myself, and the facilities, and feel okay about making that ask of the people that want to support, maybe like they're not members of the church, but they want to support, like, what the queer camp ministry is.
Can you ask the question one more time? Kind of the condense. So
I'm embarrassed, or I haven't found a successful way to say to people that want to support the queer camp, well, then we also need you to support, like, our regular budget.
Yeah.
Because we can't do, like, we wouldn't even come up, like, queer camp wouldn't even exist in Fayetteville if it weren't for the base business, the church, that allowed for the space to emerge. But in terms of, like, the consumer, they want to donate to just specifically to the camp. Like, I can do a really successful Facebook campaign if I say everything you give is going to give for, like, scholarships for the camp.
Yeah.
But if I post a Facebook campaign and say, would you support Good Shepherd, who's hosting the queer camp, that won't work as well. And so it's like figuring out how to direct some of it towards the basic.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, this just almost sounds like a situation that I'm learning, because the innovation that I'm working on right now is grant funded. And I'm learning of these crazy things called direct and indirect costs.
Yeah.
And so these indirect costs that you're speaking of are inevitable. It's rent, it's all these other things. And so if you're saying that all of the proceeds from these donations are going to this camp, it's a huge focus of the church, but it wouldn't even exist unless you had the facilities. And so, maybe I don't believe that it's deceptive to hone in on, your proceeds are going to this. They're not going to a playground. They're not going to these other things. they're going to this, but to even have this, we have to have a building. And
Yeah.
so you have a fixed indirect cost now, and you need to do your math beforehand and figure out what it is to run your facilities and run your church. And then you can put all of those proceeds towards that specific camp. But that way it's not, you're not sending a mixed message. You're saying that, hey, every dime of profit that isn't going towards keeping this facility going is going towards this camp and not anything else. But I don't know if that is helpful.
I think that's great. And I also saw someone say in the chat, you know, maybe it's time to just bite the bullet and communicate that. And I tend to agree. Having that transparency and having that just very honest conversation is, you're letting the donors in on the journey and the process. So they're learning that, you know, this is a great program that's offered by a great business or church, organization, whatever the case may be. Having that transparency and being very honest, I think comes through in a really good way versus trying to like, oh, and by the way, when you just, you know, to me, that seems it's brave and it's very real. That's a hard thing to think through.
Okay, that went twice.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So currently what I do at the University of Arkansas is I'm in our libraries department and in the Office of Scholarly Communication. So a big portion of what we do is we have like all of the scholarly research that students do, like theses, dissertations, all the research and papers and stuff that the professors do, and all of that kind of stuff. We have it in a repository. And so what we are trying to do is, we're not trying to sell anything or whatever. What we're trying to do is get people to go to our wealth of information out there. There's so much, and there's you know, it's part of open access and all that sort of stuff. So our biggest thing is trying to get people to see what we've got, and just come, you know, peruse the information. So there's all this great information out there that we want people to access and see, and that is the tricky part, I feel like, is trying to get that out there, because there's so much information out there. It's information overload. I mean, I know that for sure. So I'm trying to figure out how to sort of cut through all the chatter out there of what, you know, oh, there's all this information, but like, this is really good information. Not saying that others isn't good as well, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm struggling with. So any advice there?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking, and it sounds like you have a great, strong mission of providing free access, and like, that is such a strong, short mission to communicate out. And then you can create some sort of content, I would call it a content calendar, that provides examples of the really strong and important information that you're providing, and then always tying it back to what that mission is. That this is, I'm assuming it's free access to the community.
Yes, absolutely.
And then they can learn all of these great skills or these great nuggets of information. And because I'm sure there are such a vast amount of resources that you're offering, keeping the examples short and sweet and quick so that people can quickly like digest what you're saying, and then reminding them, you know, we call it in marketing, it's a CTA, a call to action, including that call to action to drive them to your resources. Whether it's in a virtual catalog, whether it's on your website, whether it's a different social media platform. It sounds like you have a lot of great content that you can be sharing to drive that awareness back to your organization. And I'm sure it is just extremely overwhelming knowing all the things that you can talk about. So for me, I find it helpful to create a content calendar so that you're building out, you know, you can say one post a day or one post every other day, and build that calendar out for at the beginning of the month. And you can consistently and concisely start posting things that are relevant to that call to action and to your mission, but they're short and sweet and people can understand. They can read through them quickly and then go on about their day. But that's that kind of constant reminder that you're there and you're offering that service to the community.
Gotcha.
Is that helpful?
It is so helpful. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
And there's some great tools like Hootsuite is a great tool for planning out content, and I think that's free.
Yeah, there we are actually I'm actually doing research right now on what alternative, because the free account for Hootsuite has been drastically reduced. So I'm trying to explore some other options. So I'm working on that. Yeah, we had been using Hootsuite. So yeah, definitely. But wow, thank you. I really appreciate that advice. That was really awesome. Thank you.
Yay, awesome. I'm glad I could help.
And I don't know if this is again helpful, because I know like when you have so many resources again across the board, it can get really challenging. But one thing that I'm learning through one of my consultants is, you know, is that audience kind of like Amazon first started for, no, it was Facebook, sorry, for Harvard students, like specifically those that were going to use that resource. So if there's any kind of like analytics that determine who is using those resources, whether it be like the architecture department, the horticulture department, having that initial focus and filling in that void of, hey, these guys are really passionate about our resources, starting with them and then kind of building across the board. Because even like the Arkansas Small Business Technology Development Center, I discovered them because I needed help writing a grant, and they help a lot with that. But then I found out that they also offer a plethora of other things that also helped my small business and to get other funding opportunities. And so I don't know if that's another way, if you're just starting and having a hard time, if there's one segment that can be really happy with your resources and then branching out from there. But what do you think, Elizabeth?
I love that recommendation. And there's also, depending where you are in the state or the country, I know here in Northwest Arkansas, there's a nonprofit called Startup Junkie. And they have some great resources for small businesses, startups, entrepreneurs, for funding opportunities or marketing strategy, or tons of resources for us to use as small businesses. So I would include them on the list of recommendations to use and to seek out for various resources. And I'm sure if you're in any other communities other than or outside of Northwest Arkansas, there are other organizations that provide similar resources and support. And anyone on this Zoom, if you have other resources that you would like to share or recommend, include those in the chat. That would be awesome. And Emily, your recommendation.
Emily has a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, let's see, Emily with Mount Sequoia. Let's see. Any advice for managing consistency and branding for multiple programs in one organization? Yeah, I'm at Mount Sequoia and we have everything from our camp program to our arts program, and they are all different, but part of Mount Sequoia. Yes, I'm sure that is a huge undertaking. So there are programs like HubSpot is a great resource. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the I can't remember the name of this program. I'll have to think about that, and I'll shoot a note to you. It's called Salesforce, it's very, that's a very large platform that is great reputation, great trust, but you can actually manage various programs and also take, you can take payment for programs, you can take donations, you can provide memberships, and I think it talks to your website and your social media and can really integrate a lot of the pieces that go into running a business or organization. I think it even talks to your accounting software, which is nice. House of Brands is one approach. I would love, if we have time and if you're willing to share, Clint and others, what is your understanding between a house of brands and a branded house? That's something that I've had a couple of conversations with people over the past few months, and would love to hear what your perception is on those two different concepts.
Well, okay, I'll give an example of, I used to be on the board of Augsburg Fortress, which is our Lutheran publishing house. And they had started getting into the habit of branding each kind of new publishing thing that they were doing. So like if it was a new line of Sunday school curriculum, they'd call it a new thing, and they wouldn't necessarily tie Augsburg Fortress to the brand. And the problem with that was, over time, it accumulated too many brands. Like one time we put them all up on a wall, and there was like 25 different brands that were all under Augsburg Fortress. So then we had to have kind of a conversation of like, well, how do these tie together? And is it kind of like a form of mission drift, or at least like people just have no idea how these are connected to each other anymore? So that's one of the risks. But the danger of publishing everything under Augsburg Fortress is Augsburg Fortress is this old name from when everybody used to know a little bit more about what Lutherans were, that there was the Augsburg Confession, and that Martin Luther lived in a fortress while he was translating the Bible. And as that kind of got lost in the culture, you needed better names. But the House of Brands, is the way I understand it, is if you're doing it well, it's like like I guess a successful example would be like Johnson & Johnson, right? Where they have many different brands, but you have a sense of like what they make in general. A branded house, I don't know that I know that one, so I would leave that one to you to say what you think you mean by the distinction between what I just described in a branded house.
Yes, and I totally misinterpreted your question, Emily. So thank you, Clint. You have spurred my understanding of what we're talking about now. So you have Johnson & Johnson, and then there could be a kind of a similar concept, like SC Johnson promotes its products as like, okay, this is a product of part of the SC Johnson family. So they're marketing their individual brands, and their parent brand is kind of in the background. Whereas like Coca-Cola, that's Coca-Cola, and then they have their various brands below it. And I think there can be complexities to either approach. I know I work with a local business that launched their business as a house of brands, and now they're having trouble with the community understanding that these brands are made by that company. So there is that kind of catch-22, and yes, like Google and their parent company, exactly. Yeah. So I think from knowing a little bit about Mount Sequoia, it might be easy. I mean, I could see there being a benefit to marketing the programs and then a program provided by Mount Sequoia, versus, all of these things. You're only talking about Mount Sequoia, so then the programs can be hard to understand and locate as a user. So I don't know. That's a hard one. Are y'all leaning one direction or another? Do you know?
I know we've been just trying to get like things like logos, marketing, messaging, all that stuff consistent. So our camp, we have a camp logo, we have a Creative Spaces logo, which is the art program, but it all fits and kind of melts under the Mount Sequoia brand. So that's helped a lot, just getting even the colors and stuff consistent. And yeah, I have a meeting tomorrow with the ASB TDC with the U of A about branding and talking about this parent company and how to make it make sense with an umbrella brand. Yes, so that's, I think, kind of what we're looking at trying to do. But that way we can get pretty targeted, because like when we're marketing to camps and families, it's much different than when we're marketing to artists and things like that for studio space. And it's still very similar, it still makes sense, but we're just trying to kind of keep that thread consistent.
Yeah. And Kelly made a good comment, this program brought to you by, and it's like the PBS is brought to you in, thanks to donors like you. So they have all these great programs and shows and things like that, but donors know that they are donating to PBS to support these various programs, and or they're donating to these various programs that PBS is managing. So it's kind of what you were talking about earlier, Clint, with Queer Camp, and how you communicate to your donors versus how you communicate to your programming users and partners.
Yeah, well, and we deal with, so sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for your fundraising question, I would say that's something that we've done, is we market Mount Sequoia and promote Mount Sequoia for people to donate to, and they're able to restrict their donations. So if they only want money to go towards scholarships, they can say that on the back end or on the front end, saying this is my donation and this is what it's for. But we find that a lot of people understand that they trust you, and they know, okay, I trust Clint. He's going to put on this good program and he's going to manage the funds the way I want to see them managed. And so if you can find a way to do that, I'm not sure, Facebook doesn't have a great way to add restrictions. But if you're able to do that, that may be a way that we've seen work really well.
Right. On this branding thing, maybe this is a good, to me, this is a fascinating topic, like the way Mount Sequoia functions, or we do. What we typically do, what I've done over the years, is we often spin things off. So they initially start as part of our brand, but they don't remain part of our brand. Like Canopy NWA would be an example of that. Little Free Pantry started at Good Shepherd, but you wouldn't, if you traveled around the world and saw the Little Free Pantries, they wouldn't know that. And we do that intentionally. But the question is always which ones are actually close enough in that we would actually want to retain them. And like this camp, as we've been having a conversation, especially since it's going to take place on site and that kind of thing, is so like with your question around Mount Sequoia, I wonder if the same kind of topic applies. How much do you want to release these separate programs to have their own identity that's loosely tied to Mount Sequoia versus really just all part of the one thing still?
And also knowing that you probably have different types of audiences coming to you for these different programs. So I could see a benefit from that perspective of marketing your programs, program provided by Mount Sequoia, because your artist audience is going to be very different than the parents who are signing up for kids programs or for cooking workshops or for event space. We are at 11 o'clock. So I am so thankful for all of the engagement. Thank you for your time. I would be happy to stay on for a few more minutes if anyone else had any questions that they would like to kind of talk through and discuss. I'll stop sharing my screen.